Money moves people's hearts, and an astronomical amount of wealth is enough to make people go crazy. 100 billion. Ruthless, Li Wei couldn't help but to let out a sigh of relief. Even I'm tempted. Wang Tong also shook his head and sighed. No wonder she's the HR Alliance's executive director of the Chinese region, the sister of the head of the Polonezbo family, one of the 9 great families. Money is money in the entire world. There aren't many advanced level war gods that have such a huge amount of wealth. Yes, killing horde leaders is worth a lot of money if you sell them. However, are horde leaders idiots? They have the intelligence of a normal human. Once they feel danger and feel that they have no chance of winning, they will choose to run. Once a horde leader chooses to run, it will definitely order tens of thousands of monsters to stop the war gods. Maybe they won't be able to stop them, but it will affect the war god's speed. That's why killing horde leaders is extremely difficult. The stronger they are, the harder it is. So normally, advanced level war gods kill medium level horde leaders, intermediate level war gods kill low level horde leaders, beginner level war gods kill high level war gods, and beginner level war gods kill high level war gods. For example, Wang Tong and Li Wei's hunt for the steel armored dragon ended in failure. And monsters aren't endless. The stronger they are, the fewer there are. For example, Luo Feng's Firehammer squad killed a large amount of commander-level monsters in half a month's time in that small sector. However, after that, it became much harder to find commander-level monsters. Because the amount of commander-level monsters in this area decreased. That's not the worst part is, if you kill too many commander-level monsters, it's easy to attract the horde leader. Of course, human fighters usually notice danger early on and run for their lives. However, all of this shows one thing. Earning money from killing monsters isn't easy. Most importantly, war gods spend a lot of money. Weapons, battle uniforms, which one of them isn't expensive. The price of top-notch secret manuals was even more frighteningly high. Many war gods even borrow money from banks. There's no helping it, war gods spend money on too many things. For example, if an advanced level war god fights a high-level horde leader, then the safest thing to do is to buy an SS-grade uniform. After all, the 9th series, S-rank, combat suit could only resist the bite of most S-rank high lords. It wasn't 100% guaranteed. SS-class combat uniform, SS-class weapon. Which one of them wasn't priceless? SS-grade secret manuals and even the ultimate secret manual 9-stage Thunderblade and so on were also shockingly expensive. If all of them were equipped with top-class equipment, just how many middle-grade horde lords would they need to kill? This is something most advanced level war gods can't do. Not to mention, there were some treasures with special abilities in the war god palace. The prices of those treasures were frighteningly high. Many war gods from all over the world have taken loans from banks. This isn't a lie. Of course, there are also a few who are extremely rich. For example, those with special abilities such as war god-level spirit readers, war gods with shocking strength, or war gods with powerful backgrounds. For example, the children of the strongest person in the world, Hong. They were rich because they had a father. The HR Alliance was an alliance of the world's top financial groups and super families. They controlled over half of the world's economy and infiltrated into almost every industry. Their wealth was equally shocking. Vanina Polinas, as the chairman of the HR Alliance in China, one of the top executives of the HR Alliance, and also the younger sister of the current head of the Polinas family, does her wealth even need to be mentioned? Her wealth mainly came from the HR Alliance and her family, not from hunting monsters. Even her husband Li Yao couldn't compare to her. Jiangnan headquarters city, dojo of limits. Wearing a black training uniform, Zhuge Tao sat cross-legged in the training room. As time went by, a sliver of morning light slowly seeped in through the window. Zhuge Tao opened his eyes. "Turn it on," said Zhuge Tao. Immediately, a camera shot out light and projected a huge image onto the wall. Zhuge Tao has a habit. Every morning he would watch China's TV station's morning news. From there he would learn about what's happening around the world. The announcer's voice echoed throughout the training room. "What?" Zhuge Tao froze as he stared blankly at the morning news. 100 billion? Zhuge Tao blinked twice. 100 billion. Zhuge Tao suddenly stood up. His heart couldn't help but speed up. This amount of wealth was too ridiculous. As one of the 4 giants of Jiangnan headquarters city's dojo of limits, even he couldn't help but tremble. Vulture and Scorpion, it's actually them. That's right, which normal war god would be able to take out 100 billion? Zhuge Tao shook his head in amazement. Plus, this morning news is for everyone in the country. In other words, this news isn't limited to fighters, even normal people know about it. The HR Alliance's influence sure is big to be able to broadcast this news on China's TV station. 100 billion. Even Zhuge Tao was moved. After all, it seemed like Zhuge Tao, would give a few geniuses and powerful fighters some benefits. But in reality, most of it was done with the privileges he had in the dojo. He only needed to take out a very small amount of money. "Enter the House of Limits, wargod-level fighter forum," Zhuge Tao ordered. Immediately, the scene on the screen changed and entered the wargod-level fighter forum. Logically speaking, as an advanced level warlord, he doesn't have the qualifications. But as a manager he does. TSK, the entire forum sure is lively. Looks like South America, North America, Europe, Africa, fighters from all over the world are all excited. Zhuge Tao laughed, but this happened in China. I'm afraid this huge bounty will end up in the hands of us Chinese. 100 billion. It's like throwing a fat sheep into a pack of wolves. Indeed, the entire world is in an uproar because of this huge bounty. Even existences surpassing the wargod level have to gasp a few times. Even wargod level fighters are moved. One can only imagine how shocked normal people are. Normal people are still struggling to find a place to live in. 100 million is an astronomical number to them, let alone 100 billion. Uproar. The entire world is in an uproar. Almost every information network can't help but investigate this matter and find the person behind it. Number 023 city used to be a large city with a population of several million. To most fighters, number 003 city was too dangerous, so number 023 city attracted a large amount of fighters. On the 8th floor of a certain 12-story apartment building in the western district of this ancient city. Boo-hoo. The wind howled outside and snowflakes fluttered. The cold air continuously rushed into the room and the ground was bone-chilling. Luo Feng sat cross-legged on a broken mat and lightly wiped his throwing knives. In his mind, the shocking, astronomical bounty message he received from his tactical communications watch appeared. Who would have thought that they would spend so much money to put a bounty on me? Even I want to report myself. Luo Feng lightly placed a throwing knife on the ground and took out another throwing knife to continue wiping. 100 billion. However, Li Wei's parents aren't idiots. They wouldn't give money just because someone reports a vague message. I need to have enough evidence. Evidence? Luo Feng doesn't think that anyone in this world has evidence that he killed Li Wei. To prevent himself from being captured by the satellite, he instantly rushed into the bushes after killing Li Wei and the others. Unless I'm so unlucky that someone was hiding beside the highway and happened to record me in my face. Luo Feng felt that the probability of this wasn't higher than finding a needle in a haystack. Actually, Luo Feng isn't afraid of anything. The only thing he's worried about is the members of the Firehammer squad. This bounty clearly states the identities and strengths of the other 3 people who died besides Li Wei. Moreover, the bounty also said, the culprit is very likely a fighter with the strength of a wargod or a spirit reader. LuoFeng's face sunk. If the captain, Wei Tai, Wei Qing and brother Qin see this, it would be hard for them not to think of me. Without a doubt, the other 4 members of the Firehammer squad would easily think of Luo Feng when they see this bounty. First of all, Luo Feng stayed in number 003 city to kill the Tiger Fang squad. And one of the 4 people who died was the captain of the Tiger Fang squad, Panya. Secondly, the bounty also states that the killer is either a wargod-level fighter or a spirit reader. And only the members of the Firehammer squad know that Luo Feng is a spirit reader. Combining these 2 points, it is indeed easy to guess. And indeed this was the case. After the astronomical bounty was announced, the other 4 members of the Firehammer squad were indeed shocked. They all guessed Luo Feng. Guessing doesn't mean we have evidence. Luo Feng shook his head. The Firehammer squad guessed Luo Feng. Some of the war gods might have guessed that Vulture and Scorpion had a grudge against them. In short, everything was groundless. None of them had sufficient evidence. Last time when Li Wei was in danger, Li Wei's parents instantly found out the location of the 2 closest war gods and asked for their help. Luo Feng frowned. In other words, Li Wei's parents have a certain amount of power and can instantly find the location of fighters within a certain range. If even the war god and the others could find him, I'm afraid it'll be even easier for the warrior level and warrior level. From Luo Feng's perspective, the difficulty of investigating a war god was much higher than investigating a warlord or warrior. They'll probably find out too. At that time I wasn't far from the scene. Luo Feng frowned. This was very disadvantageous to him. Actually, Luo Feng didn't know that the war gods were able to find the positions of other war gods by using the Palace of War Gods sharing system. Most war gods can't find the positions of warlord and warrior level fighters. However, Luo Feng was lucky. Li Wei's parents did indeed detect a few hundred people around them. And Luo Feng was one of them. I should be one of the suspects, but because I'm weak, the degree of suspicion is very low. Luo Feng frowned. However, Captain, Brother Tai, Brother Qing and Brother Qin, once one of them reveals that I stayed in number 003 city to kill the Tiger Fang squad and the secret that I'm a spirit reader. Then, even though it's not 100% proof, Li Wei's parents will definitely make me the number 1 suspect. Suddenly Luo Feng felt his wrist vibrate. He looked down at the display on his communicator watch. Captain Gao Feng's call? Luo Feng slightly frowned. Why is the captain calling me at this time? The cold wind howled outside and snowflakes filled the sky. However, thoughts flashed through Luo Feng's mind. Finally, he took in a deep breath and said lightly, "Call back." Beep, beep, beep. "Hello, Luo Feng." Captain Gao Feng's voice carried over. "Captain, what's up?" laughed Luo Feng. Gao Feng's voice lowered. "Did you see that astronomical bounty? That's a full 100 billion, which would make countless fighters jealous. It even specifically states that the culprit might be a wargod-level fighter or a spirit reader. You better not reveal your identity as a spirit reader, or else you'll get into big trouble. Since our Firehammer squad and the Tiger Fang squad already have a grudge, and the Tiger Fang captain Panya was one of the 4 people that died. Once your identity as a spirit reader is revealed, it'll be easy for people to suspect you. At that time, thousands of people will be watching you. No matter how careful you are, accidents will happen. I understand. However, since I didn't do it, what's there to be afraid of? However, Captain, this culprit is quite strong. He was able to make it so that the 4 of them didn't even have time to tell the couple about the identity of the culprit before they died. Impressive, Luo Feng couldn't help but to praise. It's indeed very powerful. Gao Feng also praised. Luo Feng continued, and Panya's death is a good thing. Our Firehammer squad won't have any trouble in the future. Yeah, this is beneficial to us. I'm just reminding you to be careful, careful and careful. After all, this matter involves too many people. I'll immediately remind Xingu and the others. Don't worry. If any of them dares to spread this news, I won't forgive them. Yeah, when are you returning to the headquarters city? The monster materials we hunted are still stored there. We'll wait for you to come back and decide what to do with them. Luo Feng smiled. Originally, I wanted to stay in the wilderness for a while, but since the Tiger Fang captain is dead, I have nothing else to do. I'll go back in 2 days. Yeah, see you later, Gao Feng's voice carried from the tactical communications watch. See you later. Luo Feng hung up and his expression immediately became serious. From the looks of it, the captain was very concerned about him and wanted to remind him. When he first heard the captain's words, he did feel a bit warm. However, if one were to carefully consider the entire matter, one would realize one thing: the other 4 members of the Firehammer squad would probably guess that he was the culprit. However, the 4 of them did not have sufficient evidence. What can the 4 of them do to make Luo Feng trust them? The best way to make me believe them is if they don't call me. If you don't call or communicate with me, you won't be able to find any conclusive evidence. Luo Feng creased his eyebrows, but the captain called me, seemingly concerned and comforting me. If I wasn't careful, with the mental pressure from the 100 billion, in front of someone who cares about me, I might just say it out loud. When Luo Feng thought of this, he couldn't help but feel fear. Indeed, a young man below the age of 20 who had just killed a great figure and received a sky-high bounty would normally be nervous. At this time, the concern of a senior who had a deep relationship with him would easily move this young man. In a moment of hot-headedness, he might even reveal the secret. Using all kinds of methods to interrogate me will only make me more vigilant. And this kind of concern can make people let down their guard. Once I reveal the secret, the captain might be using a recording device to record what I say. Luo Feng took in a deep breath, combined with the fact that I killed the Tiger Fang squad and my identity as a spirit reader. Combined with the fact that Li Wei's parents confirmed that I was one of the fighters near the scene of the crime. And finally, this recording. How can there be so many coincidences in this world? With so much evidence, it's almost 100% certain that the killer's identity is correct. Luo Feng took in a deep breath. Indeed, if he admits it himself, then he'll be in big trouble. Thankfully, he's been under pressure since he was young and worked hard to become a fighter. Under the long-term pressure, his mental fortitude isn't as weak as a young man below the age of 20. Time passed minute by minute and second by second. The snow was getting heavier and heavier. The sky and earth were covered in white, and the temperature dropped to a shocking level. Soon it was already evening. In the dirty room, Luo Feng sat cross-legged. I received 2 calls today, one from the captain and one from Wei Qing. The captain was completely concerned. And Wei Qing, on the other hand, had a shocked look on his face. In the morning, the first thing Wei Qing said when he called was, "F***ck crazy, the captain told me before to be careful and not tell anyone that you're a spirit reader. You didn't kill those 4 people, right?" Wei Qing's call and the captain's call both made Luo Feng suspicious. Of course, it was just suspicion. Maybe the captain really was just concerned about him, or maybe Wei Qing really thought of him as a brother, which was why he was so heartless. Humans are the hardest to see through. After all, there's no telling what's in a person's heart. And in front of a huge amount of money, brothers will kill each other, husbands and wives will turn against each other, fathers and sons will break off their relationships. I've seen these things way too many times on the internet. And this time, it's a huge amount of money of 100 billion. Luo Feng only used his watch to enter the internet and read some posts. He found out just how crazy the entire world is in front of this bounty. The night was even colder than the day. Luo Feng shrunk into a corner, but his heart was a bit cold. Ever since he started suspecting Captain Gao Feng and Wei Qing, Luo Feng's attitude started to change. In the past, he was very cheerful, just like a normal fighter. He was able to go through thick and thin with his brothers in the fighter squad, which made him very happy. He treated them as good brothers long ago. But now, do they treat me as a brother, or do they want to exchange me for a huge bounty? Maybe they didn't do it because they didn't have enough evidence. Luo Feng's gaze was cold. What am I thinking? I'm always suspecting. Luo Feng shook his head. He finally found out that even his attitude couldn't help but change under the huge bounty of 100 billion. He wasn't sure if other people would be moved by 100 billion, since it's 100 billion. So he's always suspicious. Even though Luo Feng knows that being suspicious isn't good, he can't control himself. Vanina Polinus achieved her goal. Luo Feng unknowingly fell into all sorts of pressure brought by the 100 billion bounty. Stop thinking. Luo Feng immediately lowered his head and looked at his watch. He lightly pressed a button and started to look at the various messages on the tactical communications watch's screen. Suddenly he flipped to the phone book. One by one the names calmed Luo Feng down. Among these names, there was his good brother Wei Wen, that he played with ever since he was still in diapers. I wonder how Wen is doing right now. Luo Feng couldn't help but to let out a smile as he recalled some of the interesting things he did with Wei Wen back then. In the phone book there were quite a few names of his high school classmates. There were also the names of his friends from the dojo of limits. There were the names of his parents and little brother. Dad, mom, little brother. Luo Feng's gaze was gentle. No matter what, you'll all live well. I'll definitely cross this barrier. Suddenly, Luo Feng's gaze landed on a name, Su Xian. Su Xian's phone number. Back when he was chatting with Su Xian in the HR Alliance market, they exchanged numbers. However, after all this time, he never took the initiative to call her. Call Su Xian's number, said Luo Feng. For some reason he made the call at this time. Maybe he was worried that one day when his identity as the murderer is revealed, the Su family won't allow Su Xian to contact him anymore. Hello, Su Xian's voice carried from the tactical communications watch. Is this Luo Feng? Yeah, it's me. Luo Feng's heart warmed. How rare for a great fighter like you to think of calling me, teased Su Xian. What, you're back in the headquarters city? I'm still in the wilderness. It's just that I'm bored at night, so... As Luo Feng said this, he suddenly felt a bit awkward. Bored at night? Why does it sound like he's looking for a prostitute when he's bored at night? Cough, Su Xian coughed. I didn't think you'd be such a pervert. Oh. How are you doing in university? I've never been to university before, so I'm curious. Luo Feng immediately changed the topic. And just like that, the two of them chatted on the phone. Maybe because it was their first time chatting on the phone, and it happened in the middle of the night, they chatted for a long time. Only after hanging up did Luo Feng realize that this phone call actually lasted for an hour and a half. Could it be, this is the legendary long phone call porridge? Sure enough, an hour and a half and the porridge was already done. Luo Feng was elated. The first time he talked to a girl he had a crush on for an hour and a half is indeed a happy thing. The panic brought about by the 100 billion bounty and the negative emotions brought about by paranoia were all swept away. From the panic and suspicious dark emotions to the pure and joyful emotions of a little boy who had a crush. This change in mentality made Luo Feng's entire soul feel like it was cleansed. Slowly Luo Feng calmed down. This was an unprecedented calmness, a transcendent calmness that comes after going through huge ups and downs. After all, how many normal people can go through huge ups and downs like this? His heart was calm like still water. This feeling is so comfortable. Luo Feng really enjoyed this unprecedented feeling of calmness. And at this time he had an urge, the urge to practice his blade. Oh, he pulled out the ghost blade on his back. In this cold night where countless people were shocked by the astronomical bounty, Luo Feng started to practice the 9-stage thunder blade by himself in a desolate residential building in the wilderness number 23 city. Under the unprecedented calmness of his heart that was as still as water, every swing of his blade felt unprecedentedly comfortable. One swing, two swings. Luo Feng's spiritual force naturally spread out. Every slight movement caused by every swing was clearly detected by his spiritual force. The cold light was like snow as it scattered around the room. After experiencing so many ups and downs, he entered a state of mind as calm as still water. His mind was like a crystal, at least at this moment. Without any distractions, he completely focused on training his blade. Luo Feng trained for a while and then stood there in deep thought. Sometimes he would make a few gestures, then he would continue training. Then he would stop to think and practice again. This feeling was just like when Luo Feng was doing math problems in school. A difficult math problem requires you to go through different directions and conditions to make deductions. You have to continuously improve and correct the direction until you solve the problem. The math problems in college entrance exams are all very difficult. Some of the more difficult problems can take up to an hour or two before you can solve them. And right now Luo Feng seems to be solving problems. With the same mentality he continuously studied his blade technique. However, what's different from before is that Luo Feng's mind has never been so clear before. His control over every part of his body and the speed at which his brain operates are much faster than usual. After a night of hard training, he continued to train the next morning. In the afternoon of the second day, Luo Feng sat on the balcony with his ghost blade in deep thought for 3 hours. After that, Luo Feng continued to study his blade technique. He forgot to eat, forgot about the astronomical bounty, forgot about his suspicions. On the second night, in the dark lobby of the high-rise apartment building's 8th floor, Luo Feng continuously moved and swung his blade. The blade was so cold that it could freeze people's souls. He didn't know how many times he had swung his saber, but when the blood shadow saber moved, a cold light lit up the entire hall. There was a faint strange fluctuation like a bolt of lightning. Puff puff, the air actually produced a strange shockwave-like sonic boom. Luo Feng opened his eyes wide and froze. Done. I actually did it. The third stage of the 9-stage thunder blade, I actually completed it. Luo Feng couldn't help but to let out a roar. The third stage of the thunder blade. He actually completed it not long after the astronomical bounty was announced. Each stage of the 9-stage thunder blade gets harder and harder. I didn't think that I would be able to complete the third stage just after completing the second stage. Luo Feng let out a smile. Indeed, I should thank Li Wei's parents. If Li Wei's mother, Vanina Paulinus, knew this result, she would probably spit out blood from anger. Each level of the 9-stage thunder blade was harder than the previous. In the entire world, Thunder God was the only one who had cultivated to the 9th level. One must know that this ultimate cultivation technique was very abnormal. The third level would increase one's strength by 2.8 times. Luo Feng's current body fitness level is that of a veteran advanced level warrior. Under the 2.8x effect, his attack power can rival an intermediate level warlord. 2.8 times. One had to know that a difference of one level was only about 2 times. My saber contains 4 layers of hidden force, and its might is comparable to that of a mid-level warlord. If the telekinesis is used on the Blood Shadow saber, adding the 5th and 6th layer of strength to the saber, I'm afraid that this saber strike is comparable to a veteran advanced level warlord. LuoFeng was very clear about the power of his spiritual force. When his spiritual force combines with his body's attack power, its power is even more shocking. Surprise. It was an unexpected surprise brought about by the sky-high bounty. The astronomical bounty did indeed put a lot of pressure on LuoFeng. Some people were terrified under the pressure, even to the point of collapsing. But there were also some people who worked even harder under the pressure, and the speed of their improvement was even more shocking. And LuoFeng improved. I still have to thank Li Wei's parents. LuoFeng's face was full of joy. That astronomical bounty indeed made me panic. I felt like anyone could betray me, so I was overly suspicious. Thankfully, after chatting with Su Xian, my mood became better. The ups and downs actually made me extremely calm. Heart like still water, in other words, without any distracting thoughts. It's hard to maintain this state of extreme calmness and clarity of mind for a long time. Normal people will occasionally enter this state of extreme calmness when they're in a life or death situation or in a dangerous situation. At this time, a person's strength will exceed normal. For example, when LuoFeng was surrounded by hundreds of commander-level monsters outside of the family mart, he was able to escape in a short 1.2 seconds of absolute calmness without any distracting thoughts. However, he only maintained this state for 1 or 2 seconds. However, this time, LuoFeng's state of mind went up and down, causing him to stay in that state for over 20 hours. In these 20 hours of extreme calmness, he focused on his saber technique and created the 3rd stage of the 9-stage Thunder Blade in one go. In the end, because of the ecstasy of success, he broke away from that state of mind like still water. An astronomical bounty indeed can easily affect a person's state of mind and make me overly suspicious. According to the history books, the decline of any ancient dynasty is mostly because the emperor starts to suspect his ministers. Being overly suspicious leads to the decline of the dynasty. LuoFeng's state of mind also increased by another level. The astronomical bounty didn't have much of an effect on him. Captain and the others don't have any evidence. Without enough evidence, they naturally can't get the bounty. If they can't get the bounty, who would be stupid enough to report it? LuoFeng's ears slightly moved and he immediately rushed to the balcony to look down. He saw that there were dozens of monsters gathered below this residential building. LuoFeng froze and then laughed. Looks like my excited roar from completing the 3rd stage attracted quite a few monsters. Let's go now. Back to the headquarters city. LuoFeng immediately put on his backpack, blade, and shield and jumped from the balcony of the 8th floor like lightning. He landed on the balcony of a 3-story villa in front of him and disappeared in a blink of an eye. Train station. The train station is always the busiest place with the most people. The noise from the train spread out. The long train slowly entered the station. After that, the screeching sound of the train's wheels rang. As the doors of the train opened, large amounts of passengers walked out. The headquarters city, his home. LuoFeng walked out of the train and smiled as he looked around. Home. LuoFeng sat in the dojo of Limit's private car and returned to Mingyue sector when the sun was setting. The sector is still the same as before, so peaceful. LuoFeng looked through the window and saw quite a few residents in the sector chatting leisurely. Beep. The car stopped in front of the Limit Hall. LuoFeng opened the door and walked out. He saw a large group of people standing in front of the Limit Hall. There were quite a few fighters and their families. Even the other members of the Fire Hammer squad were here. Of course, his parents and brother were here too. Feng Luo Honghua and Gong Xanlan couldn't help but to yell. Brother Luo Hua's face was full of joy. LuoFeng. Crazy. Quite a few fighters also yelled passionately. Captain, you guys came too? LuoFeng laughed in surprise. Captain Gao Feng, Wei Tai, and Wei Qing all laughed. Gao Feng laughed. Didn't you say that you'll be back in 2 days? We're going to discuss how to deal with the monster materials anyway. Plus, we haven't seen old Zhang in a while, so we should come over and have a good chat. LuoFeng laughed as he nodded. Captain, I'll talk to you guys tonight. I'll be heading back first. Okay, Gao Feng laughed as he nodded. He watched LuoFeng leave and thought to himself, Ehem? Looking at LuoFeng's expression, he seems to be quite happy and relaxed. He doesn't seem to be under any pressure at all. I guess he really isn't the killer. Gao Feng didn't know what he was thinking. He couldn't help but to investigate and find out if LuoFeng was the killer. After all, 100 billion is too tempting. Maybe he doesn't want LuoFeng to be the killer. That way he won't have to be tempted by 100 billion. How many people wouldn't be worried in the face of an astronomical bounty and would be in a good mood? At least a young man that's not even 20 years old would have a hard time doing this. Gao Feng shook his head. Whatever, I won't think about it anymore. Gao Feng has to admit that he's a bit confused in front of this enormous bounty. Let's go, brothers. Let's go get a drink, yelled Gao Feng. Let's go. Let's go. The members of the Fire Hammer squad, including Zhang Ku with the broken arm, walked into the dojo. Only LuoFeng was at home. 2nd floor of LuoFeng's home. Right after returning home, LuoFeng put the bag with the dragon egg, battle uniform, and sword into the safe in his bedroom. Actually, even if he left it on the floor of his bedroom, no one would steal it. Since this is the fighter sector of the dojo of Limits, no one would dare to come here to steal anything. Without a doubt, Li Wei's parents have the right to investigate the surrounding fighters. With the amount of fighters gathered at the edge of number 023 city, they probably found hundreds or even thousands of fighters. I'm just one of them. My level of suspicion is extremely low. Since Li Wei's parents suspect that I'm a spirit reader, they'll probably investigate the accounts of the fighters they suspect. So, from now on, I can't put the large amounts of money I earned into my bank account with my real name. I should put it into an anonymous account. As of now, there are many anonymous accounts in the world. It doesn't matter who the account holder is. As long as the password is set correctly, you can take the money. 1. Put the large amounts of money into an anonymous account. 2. My identity as a spirit reader can't be revealed until the time is right. 3. I can't tell anyone that I killed Li Wei. 4. I can't tell anyone about the dragon egg, war god battle uniform, etc. being sold, including my family. Luo Feng was very clear that the collapse of a 1,000-mile dam can be caused by an ant's hole. Many times, he can't reveal himself before he has enough strength to fight against the vulture and scorpion couple. Having a few hundred million or even a few billion is a lot for a warlord-level fighter, but it's not an exaggeration. However, if his bank account has over 10 billion, how could vulture Li Yao and scorpion Venena Paulinus not be suspicious? Keep in mind that the HR Alliance controls over half of the world's economy. Many large foreign banks are under the HR Alliance. With their special authority, they can completely investigate Luo Feng's wealth through the world's banking network. Only an anonymous account is the safest. Even the banks themselves don't know who their customers are, so they can't investigate. The most important thing for me right now is my strength on the surface. So, I better buy the 9-stage Thunderblade instruction manual first. Luo Feng slightly nodded. At this time the phone beside him rang. Hello Luo Feng, are you done yet? I'm done, I'm coming, laughed Luo Feng. We're at the bar on the first floor of the limit hall, come over. After hanging up, Luo Feng headed towards the limit hall in the sector. In the bar on the first floor of the limit hall, around a dozen fighters were chatting. One of the tables was surrounded by a few people, the members of the Firehammer squad. As Luo Feng walked in, "Hey Luo Feng, crazy you're here?" Everyone in the bar greeted him. Luo Feng laughed and responded a few times. He then sat at the Firehammer squad's table. This table was occupied by Gao Feng, Wei Tai, Wei Qing, Qinggu, Luo Feng and the disabled Zhang Ke. After the 6 of them sat down they laughed, drank and chatted. Only until around 9 p.m. did Zhang Ke leave. Only Luo Feng and the others were left at the table. "Luo Feng, what do you think we should do with the monsters we killed this time?" laughed Gao Feng. "In my opinion we should just sell them for money," couldn't help but to yell Wei Tai. Luo Feng shook his head. "Captain, I'm preparing to sell my portion of the materials we killed to the limit hall of Dojo of Limits to earn some contribution points. I only have a pitiful few hundred contribution points right now. I don't even have a 1 star. These few hundred contribution points were obtained by selling a small portion to the Dojo of Limits when he crazily killed around 10,000 soldier-level monsters." "Right, Luo Feng hasn't even reached a 1-star contribution point yet," nodded Gao Feng. The others couldn't help but to laugh as they nodded. "Yeah, we need to earn some contribution points. There are quite a few benefits to having high contribution points," laughed Qinggu. "For example, you have to buy your own instruction manuals. Only with enough contribution points will you be able to buy the instruction manuals. And only when you have a star rank can you enter the special training rooms of the Limit Hall of Limits." Luo Feng nodded. Some of the high-tech and expensive training rooms are something that even the big powers can't afford. Only gigantic powers like the Dojo of Limits and Thunder Dojo can build special training rooms in every headquarters city. However, only when your contribution points reach a certain level can you get a certain amount of training time per year. How about this? Gao Feng took out a piece of paper from his pocket. On the paper was printed the monster materials that the Firehammer squad had hunted. "This is our harvest this time. Every material has a market value. The total value of all the materials added together is around 2.2 billion. Gao Feng's voice was rather low. "And it's quite late right now, so there aren't many people in the bar. Actually, it wasn't a big deal if others heard it. This time Luo Feng and I will be the main force while Qinggu, Wei Tai, and Wei Qing will be the support. This way Qinggu, Wei Tai, and Wei Qing would each take 10%, which was 220 million each. Me and Luo Feng, 35% each, which is 770 million each." Gao Feng looked towards the crowd. "No objections, right?" The members of the Firehammer squad all laughed. "Do you have any objections?" In the past 1 or 2 years, they would only earn 100 million. This time Qinggu and the other 2 had earned 220 million in such a short time. Of course, it's also because they used the genetic medicine to increase their strength. If their strength didn't increase, they wouldn't be able to help Luo Feng and Gao Feng in number 003 city outskirts. "Luo Feng, choose the monster materials worth 770 million. You decide how to deal with it." Gao Feng handed over the paper and shouted at the bar counter, "Get me a pen." Luo Feng looked at the paper in front of him and looked carefully. After the pen arrived, Luo Feng swiftly started drawing and quickly drew nearly 770 million worth of monster materials. Nowadays, because martial artists often communicated with each other through the internet, and because of the fierce competition between managers and other personnel who purchased monster materials, the prices had long since become clear. Usually, there would not be much of a difference. "Luo Feng, you sold it to the Dojo of Limits for contribution points to buy instruction manuals?" asked Gao Feng. "I want to buy the secret manual for the first 4 stages of the 9-stage Thunderblade." Luo Feng said helplessly, Actually, I only need to buy the 4th stage. Too bad, this instruction manual doesn't only sell one stage. If you want to buy an instruction manual, then buy the first few stages. Actually, Luo Feng really wanted to buy the first 5 stages of the 9-stage Thunderblade. Unfortunately, if he wanted to buy the first 5 levels he would need 2 billion. Half price, 1 billion. However, the condition for half price was that one must have a 3-star contribution point. That was 1 million contribution points. If he were to spend money to buy contribution points he would need 10 billion contribution points. Even if selling monster materials to the Dojo of Limits for contribution points is more worth it, Luo Feng doesn't have that many monster materials. Therefore he could only buy the first 4 tiers for now. The full price for the first 4 stages of the 9-stage Thunderblade is 500 million Chinese dollars. The half price is 250 million Chinese dollars. The condition for half price is a 2-star contribution point, which is 100,000 contribution points. Selling instruction manuals is indeed the most rip-off. Wei Qing couldn't help but to nod on the side. The HR Alliance's instruction manuals are a bit lower than the full price of the Dojo of Limits. However, compared to the Dojo of Limits half price, it's much more expensive. I know. The Dojo of Limits sells the first 4 stages of the 9-stage Thunderblade for 500 million full price and 250 million half price. And even though the HR Alliance doesn't require contribution points, it still requires 400 million. Luo Feng shook his head helplessly. In terms of attractiveness, the Dojo of Limits half price is indeed the lowest price in the market. Sadly, this half price requires a lot of contribution points. After thinking about it, selling the monster materials to the Dojo of Limits is still more worth it. On the second day, the Firehammer squad directly went to the HR Alliance market in Jiangnan headquarter city. First, Captain Gao Feng, Wei Tai, Wei Qing and Qin Gu went to take out the monster materials from the large storage boxes. After that, they gave all of the monster materials Luo Feng chose to Luo Feng. The fighter's backpack was open layer by layer until it reached a height of 1.2 meters. Only then was it able to fit all of the materials. Gao Feng, Wei Tai, Wei Qing, and Qin Gu all sold their monster materials to the HR Alliance. At most, after haggling over the price, they got slightly more than the estimated price. Gao Feng earned 780 million, while Wei Tai, Wei Qing, and Qin Gu all earned a bit more than 220 million. Let's go to the Dojo of Limits. The Dojo of Limits headquarters is the headquarters of the Dojo of Limits in Jiangnan headquarter city. However, Luo Feng rarely comes here. Gao Feng. Cannon. Crazy. After entering the first floor of the Dojo of Limits headquarters, quite a few fighters recognized Luo Feng's group and passionately greeted them. Luo Feng and the others also laughed as they chatted. Most fighters meet each other while resting in the resupplying base. And right now Luo Feng's reputation is pretty big. Under the lead of a blue-suited woman, Luo Feng and the others took the elevator and arrived at the 23rd floor. Ding. The elevator door opened. Please follow me. The blue-suited woman smiled as she led Luo Feng and the others into an office. In this office, there was a middle-aged woman sitting in front of a computer. You must be the Firehammer squad. Welcome, welcome, smiled the middle-aged woman. My name is Luo Yunqin. Manager Luo and I are from the same family. Laughed Luo Feng. Manager Luo, these are the monster materials we brought this time. Take a look. As he said that, he placed the gigantic backpack on the ground and pulled the rope. Immediately, large amounts of monster materials were poured into a metal basin. Luo Yunqin's eyes flashed and she immediately took out her locked case. She opened it and took out her tools. Beep 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 beep. Under the scanning of the equipment, the monster materials quality, name and price appeared on the screen. There was no need to check them by hand. Soon, the total price appeared on the screen. The total is 510 million, and the contribution points are 255,000, smiled Luo Yunqin. Luo Feng slightly nodded. If this batch of monster materials is sold to the HR Alliance, it can be sold for around 770 million. And in the limit hall, it can only be sold for 2/3 of the original price of 510 million, which is 260 million less. However, it increased the contribution points by 255,000. If you just rely on donations to earn contribution points, you'll need 2.55 billion. In other words, if you lose 10 million by selling the monster materials to the limit hall, you can earn 10,000 contribution points. It's 10 times better than donations. Clearly, the Dojo of Limits wants everyone to earn contribution points through hunting monsters. If you donate to the limit hall to earn contribution points, it's purely cheating. That's why it's 10,000 Chinese dollars, which is only one contribution point. It's a punishment. Are you sure you're selling? Smiled Luo Yunqin as she looked at Luo Feng. I'm sure, nodded Luo Feng. The limit hall isn't like the HR Alliance. They don't bargain. Of course, the limit hall's prices are usually very fair and transparent. Add the materials from the 2 low-level commander-level monsters to my battle score, said Luo Feng. Alright. Right now your fighter level is beginner-level warlord, nodded Luo Yunqin and entered it. A fighter's level is determined by their battle record of hunting monsters. For example, to reach the beginner-level warlord level, you must have the battle record of killing 2 low-level commander-level monsters. However, the battle record here isn't completely trustworthy, because no one knows whether or not you killed the monster yourself, since you can buy the monster materials and claim them as your own. However, the so-called fighter level isn't very useful. In the fighter circle, everyone knows who's strong and who's weak. If a rich kid buys the corpses of 2 low-level horde leader-level monsters and says that he killed them, his fighter level will become beginner-level war god. Once he does this, it's easy for other fighters to challenge him. If you have the strength, then that's fine. If you don't have the strength, then it'll be shameful for someone with the title of beginner-level war god to be trampled on by a group of warlords. So without enough strength, most people don't want to get a title. I killed around 10,000 soldier-level monsters in 2 months, and most of them were high-level soldier-level monsters. Most fighters think that I'm a beginner-level warlord. I'm afraid that Li Wei's parents will also think that I have the strength of a low-level warlord when they look up information on me. If that's the case, I'll directly raise my fighter level to beginner-level warlord. Late at night in LuoFeng's home's audiovisual room. The screen on the wall entered the Home of Limits page. The most eye-catching thing on this page was a list. Name, Luo Feng. Gender, male. Address, China Jiangnan Headquarters City. Fighter identification number, 4261232056080100002. Level, warlord, beginner. Contribution value, 255,612 points, 2-star. Balance, 1.1 billion, 89,800,000 Chinese dollars. Online market, instruction manual 9-stage Thunder Blade. Luo Feng swiftly tapped on the wireless keyboard and entered the 9-stage Thunder Blade instruction manual page. After carefully browsing, he saw the words at the top. 9-stage Thunder Blade, all 9 stages. Price, 100 billion Chinese dollars, full price, 50 billion Chinese dollars, half price. Requirement, 4-star contribution. That's an astronomical price. It's even more expensive than the elixir of life and requires 4-star contribution. Luo Feng shook his head and lightly tapped on the button for the first 4 stages of the instruction manual. Please confirm if you want to purchase the first 4 stages of the 9-stage Thunder Blade. 250 million Chinese dollars is required. Confirm. Luo Feng tapped. Please check your fingerprint and confirm again. Luo Feng placed his finger on the fingerprint scanner on the wireless keyboard and shook his head as he sighed. Unfortunately, buying the first 5 stages of the 9-stage Thunder Blade requires a 3-star contribution to buy at half price. There's nothing he can do about it. He can only buy the first 4 stages. According to common sense, the 9-stage Thunder Blade gets harder as you progress. Luo Feng managed to complete the 3rd stage due to some special circumstances. The 4th stage will probably take a very long time unless he gets lucky again. Beep. Fingerprint confirmed. Purchase successful. Money deducted. The first 4 stages of the 9-stage Thunder Blade will be delivered to Mr. Luo Feng's home within 24 hours. Notifications appeared on the screen. Luo Feng let out a long sigh. Now that I've bought the instruction manual, I have to think about how to safely sell the Dragon Egg battle uniform and sword.